Hi there, and welcome into episode number 5 of the show. Usually this is the point in the show in this podcast short history where I introduce it as the BTN podcast. But as of this episode, the podcast will be going through a bit of a mini rebrand. From this point forward, the show will be called the BTN Take 10 podcast with Alex Roux. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, so I'm just going to call it Take 10 or Take 10 podcast for short. Basically, we originally planned for it to go by the name Take 10, but our legal department here at BTN, which is owned by Fox, had to make sure that we weren't infringing on anyone's name. So instead of waiting for the powers to be to clear the Take 10 name, and that was kind of an unknown amount of time, we decided to launch the show with just kind of a generic BTN podcast name and wait for the lawyers to do what they do. So the lawyers did their lawyer talk, and 5 episodes in, we have a name with a bit more imagination than BTN Podcast, and it's Take 10. And some people have asked me, what does Take 10 mean? Don't really have a good answer for that, honestly. There are a few prominent sports shows out there that feature the word take, and that's for good reason. That's by design. Hot takes and cold takes and all kinds of takes are the fabric of sports talk these days. So that's the first part. And the 10, obviously, is for the 14 schools in the Big Ten, of course. Makes all the sense in the world. But really, I just thought the name was kind of catchy. It's short, it's to the point, and I'm not going to overthink it. So I suggest anyone out there doesn't overthink it either. And there you have it. Take 10 it is from here on out. And so what is on officially the 5th episode of Take 10, I had a very enjoyable discussion with a very special guest, Robbie Hummel. Hummel was a fantastic basketball player for Purdue from 2007 to 2012. He played a couple seasons in the NBA and was wrapping up his latest season in a Moscow suburb overseas in Russia when we spoke last week. He had some really fantastic stories throughout the hour or so that we spoke, including one about former Wisconsin head coach Bo Ryan involved with former Ohio State National Player of the Year Evan Turner. It's a story that's impossible not to love, and I guarantee you'll get a kick out of it. So let's get into it. The BTN Take 10 podcast discussion with Robbie Hummel. I'm very excited to welcome Robbie Hummel to the show. Robbie is one of the best basketball players to play in the Big Ten Network era and is an all-time Purdue Hoops great. You can follow him on Twitter at Robbie Hummel, and he's currently playing professionally in the Moscow area in a top league in Russia. How's it going over there, Robbie?
It's going good. I cannot complain. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do so.
Yeah, so you are playing in Russia right now, and the season over there must be almost over, correct? Because you told me that if you had lost this past Sunday, you'd be coming back to the States soon. Is it the playoffs going on right now over there?
So it is the playoffs. This league is very unique. It's actually not just teams in Russia, but there's teams in Latvia, Kazakhstan, Estonia, and then also the team. Most of the teams are in Western Europe. There's one team that's actually in Siberia. So that's a 6-hour flight from Moscow, and it's 5 time zones ahead. So it's interesting in that regard, but the competition is good. It's good because my team has paid on time, and over here that can certainly be something that you worry about.
Sure.
But I've been lucky in that regard this year, so that's been good. And yeah, we're headed to the finals, so that's a positive thing.
Yeah, good luck to you guys the rest of the way. You're quite a long way from home over there, obviously. How did you end up in Russia with that particular team? Yeah,
no, it kind of happened. So I went to training camp with the Denver Nuggets this year. Thought I had a pretty good chance to make the team, but just I played really well in the practices, but unfortunately in the games I just didn't shoot the ball very well. And I think their roster kind of broke down to where they saw they needed another big. So Jarnell Stokes made the team. I think he got hurt actually pretty quickly. But once I got released, I went home. I came back to Chicago. Was home for probably 2 or 3 days, and my agent, who's based out of Chicago, Mark Bartelstein, called me. Said this team in Moscow, it's called Khimki. It's like a suburb of Moscow, but it's a big team over here in Europe. They were EuroLeague last year, but Euro Cup this year, which is EuroLeague's like the biggest league in Europe you can play in. Euro Cup's kind of the second biggest. but I knew the team. I knew they have a very good reputation, especially in terms of paying, which is, like I said, a big thing over here.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fell in my lap. So myself and Jeremy Evans, we were both released, and Markel Brown, all three of us were released from NBA teams, and we all three signed over here.
Yeah, Jeremy Evans and Markel Brown, those are a couple of big-time high flyers over here in college days, and Jeremy Evans in the NBA, too.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jeremy got hurt like a month into the season, so he went home in December. He hurt his hip. I think I saw he's playing in the TBT, so I'm glad he's being healthy. But yeah, Markel, he's a really, really good athlete, really good player, was really good at Oklahoma State. Then I just went to Brooklyn, played for the Nets for a year or two, and this is his first year overseas. So he's been a good teammate and a really, like you said, explosive athlete. Yeah,
so you mentioned Moscow time is 8 hours ahead of Chicago, so it's about 11 p.m. over there right now for you. What's a typical day like over there for you in Russia?
Well, it depends on how many practices we have. The weather is finally getting warm. I was told, actually, this is the coldest spring. Spring in June. Spring in 100 years in the city. So it's been a little frustrating in that regard. But you know what? If we have two practices, I wake up about 9. We practice at 10:30. We usually lift weights in the morning. After weights, we'd shoot. So that usually takes it's like an hour and a half, hour 45. Go to lunch, head back to my apartment, take a nap usually, depending on if I feel like it or not. If I'm not tired, I'd catch up on TV shows, or I have a sling box so I can watch American TV. But yeah, the European basketball player, I think most of the Americans definitely catch up on American television shows and movies as well. So do that. Second practice is usually at 6. So head back to practice about 5. Get there in about 20 minutes. Get taped, get stretched, practice, eat dinner, and then you have the rest of your night to kind of get yourself ready to do it again the next day. So it's certainly a very regimented schedule. Over here, you practice twice a day a lot of the time, so that kind of makes it hard to go out and do things. But in this league, it's been crazy. We've had 3 breaks since I want to say March 1st of 10 days or more where we didn't play, and one of them was 17 days. We had some days off where I was kind of able to do some traveling. I went to Rome for 2 days and got to kind of check Rome out. And then actually this last break, we were waiting. We had 17 days between the quarterfinals and the semifinals of the playoffs. So I had 3 days in Barcelona where I just kind of hung out at the beach and was able to kind of hang out in Spain. So it's been kind of a weird year in that regard, schedule-wise, but it's been a positive experience.
That's pretty cool. Cool that you got time to kind of explore the Europe a little bit. And I know you mentioned us before, and you mentioned just now that you're a big TV shows guy. What are some good ones you're watching right now?
Actually, funny enough, The Americans, which is about the KGB and about the Cold War. So I watched that. I really like. I'm a big Empire fan. I think that's filmed in Chicago. I like that. I like Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is old, but I still like to rewatch them. I like Veep. Designated Survivor when that was on. So at one time I could have 10 shows going on at once. It's right. Honestly depressing.
You excited for Curb to come back? And I think they pushed it back to the fall, but I was really excited for it to potentially come back this summer.
I know my neighbor in Chicago is Luke Herringody, and we always joke about Curb, and we were both talking about how we're really excited for that to come back. It's a hilarious show.
You mentioned to my colleague here, actually, Brent Urena, at one point that you are a Dave Chappelle fan. You like to have dinner with Dave Chappelle at some point. Have you seen his new specials on Netflix yet?
Yeah, I watched them. And funny you say that, actually. When I was in Minnesota, after a game, our team promotion person kind of came to us and asked if anybody would be interested in doing this fundraiser with Dave Chappelle. And I was like, yeah, for sure. So I had volunteered, me and Ronnie Turioff both did, and it ended up being, it was this Dave Chappelle night in the Target Center, and Prince was sponsoring it, and he came into the Target Center, and he played horse with all these fans. There was like the lower bowl of the Target Center on one side was filled, so there was probably a couple thousand people there, and he was picking people out of the audience to play horse with. So me and Dave Chappelle, who like when he was on the show was super skinny, but disappeared for a while and came back and he's like jacked. Me and Dave Chappelle are playing horse against just random people in the crowd, and it's funny because the voices he's making were kind of like the same as some of his characters on his skit. So he picks this guy out of the stands to play horse against us, and this dude played professionally, I guess, overseas, but Dave had no idea. And the first shot this guy takes, he just dribbles up to the basket and cracks one. He dunks it. And Dave looked at me and was like, "How the hell did you pick this guy?" And I was like, "You picked him." But it was a good time. He was really cool. He actually ended up serving the crowd pancakes, which was like obviously from his Prince skit where Charlie Murphy played Prince and they served him pancakes at the end. But it was kind of a surreal experience for sure. That's
pretty amazing. Could Dave hoop a little bit?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. He his jump shot didn't look bad. He made some shots. He was definitely not a bad player.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. That's a awesome experience, especially just kind of pops out of nowhere. Comes in Minnesota like that. That's cool. So a little bit more on Russia. What's the area like where you live? Do you stick out a little bit, even more than you might over here in the States, just being a pro basketball in this suburb of Moscow?
Not really. I actually live in between the suburb and Moscow. I'm probably 10-minute, with no traffic, I'd be like a 10-minute car ride to Moscow, 10-minute car ride to Khimki. So I'm right kind of in between. I don't really stick out that much. I guess my height, I do a little bit, but not horribly. It's not. I know I talked to some guys who play over in China, and they talk about how they stand out above the crowd, crazy because the people there are a little bit smaller. But here, not so much. It's a really people. It's kind of like being in New York. Everybody just kind of blends in. It's a huge city. It's the number one worst traffic city. I think it's actually I think it is number one. It's one or two in terms of having the worst traffic in the world. Traffic jams are crazy. People are always on the go. It's a very metropolitan. Like I said, it's like living in New York. So,
what's the longest traffic jam you've been in over there?
Like I said, it takes 10 minutes to get to the gym, 15 minutes to get to the gym if there's no traffic. And it's taken me an hour and a half before.
Oh, wow.
If the highways are jammed up, it's going to be a long wait.
That's like L.A. puts L.A. and Atlanta to shame a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Have you picked up the language okay over there? Because it doesn't seem like it might be the easiest one to learn.
No.
Not at all.
I can count to like 9. I can say hello, thank you, you're welcome. The cuss words, my teammates. But other than that, no, my Russian is extremely poor. But the thing is, this team, they make us get drivers. So I have a driver. His name's Roman. He's this little Russian guy. He's 28. He street races cars in his free time. And sometimes I swear he's street racing with me in the back. He drives like it's a NASCAR race sometimes.
Wow.
But he's super cool, but he speaks no English. So we literally talk over Google Translate. But he loves 50 Cent. He likes rap music. Really cool guy. But it's been interesting. I'm like one of my friends over here. It's the only reason we're able to be friends is because of technology. So it's pretty incredible.
You need to get 50 Cent on the Google Translate. He can be like the Google Translate voice, translating the words.
Yeah, no, for sure.
One more thing about Russia. I've got to ask this because Russia's obviously in the news literally like 24/7 here for obvious reasons. Is the climate similar over there? Are American politics a big topic of discussion or not really?
I know when the election was going on before Trump won, you'd hear about him a lot. Like our trainers listen to the radio when they're like taping us or giving you treatment or whatever. So you would hear his name. Mm-hmm. But it seems like ever since the election ended, it's kind of died down. I don't think they cover it quite like it is in America, where it seems like Russia is all the American media talks about at this point. Here, I think because Vladimir Putin has said, we didn't have anything to do with it, and I guess with Russia, it can be questionable how free the media is here.
Right.
I think that it's really a non-issue here. It's not really talked about. So no, at this point, it's not a big deal.
That's really interesting. But I'm gonna stick to sports now and switch to Purdue, because talking to a Purdue all-timer here, and I want to get a good amount of Boilers talk in for all the Purdue fans. Just going back to your early days and your path to Purdue, obviously you came in with a legendary class, the Baby Boilers, in 2007. First of all, can you believe it's been 10 seasons since you and those guys, Juwan Johnson, Etuan Moore, and the rest of them stepped on campus?
No, it's pretty wild just to think that was that long ago. It doesn't feel like it was, that many years have gone by. But when you look back, it's incredible how fun it was. I feel like I'm really, really lucky that I got to come in with three other guys as freshmen, Etuan, Juwan, and I'll throw Scott in there, even though he transferred, that I was really comfortable with and had played a lot of basketball with. Scott being, me and him had played together since like second grade. Etuan, Scott and I played on the same AAU team so for 2 years, so we were really comfortable with that. And then Juwan, we played with in the Indiana All-Stars, with the Junior All-Stars and Senior All-Stars teams. So it was cool, and we got to join kind of a core with Kramer and Keaton, and added Lewis and a couple more pieces where we had a really successful, 4, or I guess for me 5 years. It was great.
Yeah, how did that class come together? Because you guys pretty much committed right around the same time period, right?
Right. So Juwan actually committed first, and I remember when he committed, he texted myself, Etuan, and Scott, and this is sad, but group texts weren't like invented yet. So he texted us individually, and just kind of, said, "Hey guys, I just committed to Purdue." And like I said, we'd known Juwan from the Junior All-Stars at that point. And he just kind of told us, "Hey guys, I'm committed to Purdue. I think it'd be great if we could all kind of get something going here." And Etuan and I had sat down. We had roomed together in an AAU tournament in Virginia called Boo Williams, which is a Nike tournament. And we had talked about, hey, this could be something good where we end up going to school together and play together and keep this run of success that we've had for the last 2 years with SYF kind of going. And I swear, I think he probably said that because he thought I'd passed him the ball because of the way he could score. But no, it just kind of all snowballed. Each one committed, I committed, and then the pressure kind of got on Scott, I think, to commit. And it was just such a cool time because everybody was so excited about Purdue. And, I think the program had been a little bit down, but Coach Painter was an up-and-coming coach, and you saw him, even though his first season they lost a bunch of games, they were competitive. And they had a bunch of guys get hurt, but they still played hard and played in a way where you respected what they were doing. So I think it was just the start of that time where AAU was starting to be one of those things where guys play together and guys kind of want to go to school together and kind of create those bonds. And it was a really special thing.
Yeah, you talk about that kind of Painter style of play, and the coaches that recruited you that were in that Painter coaching tree while you were there, Conzo Martin, Rick Ray, Paul Lusk, they all have head coaching jobs now in Division I. So looking back, it kind of makes sense that you guys were able to assemble some really good teams. Sure,
yeah. No, we were really well coached. We really pressured the basketball defensively, and then Coach Painter, with his motion offense, he gave us a lot of freedom. And I think I feel fortunate in terms of myself that I went to Purdue because I think he put me in a position to be successful. He played me at the stretch four, which I was actually kind of surprised at when I first got to campus because I thought there's no way I can play power forward in the Big Ten. I was recruited kind of as a small forward, shooting. I thought maybe I'd play shooting guard because I played point guard for my high school team. So I kind of thought he was crazy at first when he was putting me in this position, but really I was like a fourth guard on the perimeter at the power forward spot. And I guess back then in 2007, the stretch four was kind of a new thing. It wasn't as widely, I guess, thought of as it is today, because if you looked at the power forwards in the league, it was like Goran Suton, Brian Randall, trying to think. Marcus Landry. So like guys that were skilled, but also were kind of, there was bangers. You know, they were guys that could mix it up inside. And I think just him putting me at that stretch four position was it really put me at advantage. And it really allowed me to gain confidence and feel like I could have some success.
Yeah, so you were at Purdue for 5 years. I mean, playing at a major program in the Big Ten, in some really big games, on some really good teams. You must have some really unique experiences that fans out there listening would for sure find fascinating. Do you have any really memorable stories from your time at Purdue that stood out about maybe funny teammates, coaches, or any story that fans maybe haven't heard about?
You know, I guess in terms of funny teammates, I don't know if the fans will remember him. He was a guy from California. His name's Chris Reed. He was a junior college player. Great guy. Really funny. Yeah. There's almost so many stories. It's hard to think of one to tell. I guess I'll go with. It's hard. Shoot, I was just thinking about him today.
And if there aren't any off the top of your head, you can anything like that happened while you were playing, maybe like hostile arenas or anything like that. I'm sure you had some pretty big games on the road.
Hostile arenas, Michigan State was great, Wisconsin was great, but honestly, whenever we went into IU, it was like another deal. So I remember my junior year, we were ranked like 6th or 7th in the country, and at the time, they were kind of struggling a little bit. You know, Crean had just taken over, the Sampson thing had ended, and Jordan Hulse was a freshman, that Christian Wofford, those guys. So we go in there, and their record's not great, but we knew that the game was going to be tough, obviously because it's a rivalry game, and this was kind of like their Super Bowl for the season because they weren't going to make any tournaments, and it was getting to be February, so it was one of the later games in the league. And we go in there, and it's a close game, and in the second half, I'm inbounding the ball for the whole half, and this guy is just on me. But what he's saying is like crazy. Like I can't repeat what he's saying on this, but it's like some really bad stuff. So I, of course, just think it's like a college student that's maybe drunk or just as insane or whatever. And after the 4th or 5th time of me inbounding the ball onto this end, I finally turn around to look at him, and this dude isn't a college student. He's like 65 years old. And he's wearing candy striped pants. So I'm like looking at him, and he's just tearing into me. And I was like, I cannot believe that this dude who is this old is legitimately yelling at 21-year-old kids the things he is. But you know what? That's what I think makes sports so unique, is that it just makes people kind of lose their minds. You know, it's like you go to a sporting event and there's grown men painting their faces and screaming for 3 hours about baskets and touchdowns. So, it makes it fun to go into those venues, but it can be a little bit eye-opening.
Yeah, that's that Hoosier hysteria right there. The guy must have never graduated. He just kind of was in that mindset until old age. So you yourself were a 3-time first-team All-Big Ten player for Purdue, which is a really rare feat for a player to accomplish at any school. How did you manage to play at such a high level so consistently, especially dealing with injuries? Like you had back problems your sophomore year that cost you a good amount of time, and then obviously the back-to-back ACL tears at the end of your junior season and heading into your senior year. How did you maintain a good level of play at a first-team All-Big Ten consistency?
Sure. Like I said, I think freshman year was a surprise for everybody. If you would have asked me when I was leaving high school, like, what would be like the best case scenario for you going into Purdue, I would have never said first team all league. That's for sure. I would have just been like, well, I hope I play, I hope I contribute. But it really kind of, that year snowballed, I think. And like I said, Coach Painter put me in a really good spot to where I could kind of have some success and build on that. And I was fortunate to play really well in some of the big games that year, I guess on the road and at home. So, but like I said, it was a surprise. In the junior year, we were rolling. We were one of the best teams in the country. I think with myself, Juwan, and Etuan, we were able to play off each other really well. I think just with Etuan's ability to get in the paint, his mid-range game, he'd come off the pick and roll. You have Juwan Johnson rolling to the basket, who's long, super athletic, and then me kind of raising behind. We ran that action to death because you have to pick your poison. How do you want to get beat? So, I got a lot of open shots from those guys, but I think we played together extremely well, and that made it easy for us. And then my last year, obviously coming off 2 ACLs, it was tough, but I put in a lot of work, really worked hard to rehab and try to get back to that level of play. And luckily we had a really good training staff that was able to help me and kind of get me back to where I needed to be.
Sure. And we can always play what ifs and talk about hypotheticals, but you guys had great success as a program in spite of those injuries to yourself. Which season sticks out the most to you as one that you think, man, if we were at full strength, we could have made a run at a national title?
Oh, it's my junior year for sure. We go into that game in Minnesota. I think we're 24-3. We're ranked the number 3 team in the country. That year we'd beaten, I want to say, 4 or 5 top 10 teams. We beat Tennessee on a neutral court. We beat West Virginia at home. We beat Michigan State in the Breslin Center, and we beat Ohio State in Value City Arena. So we had 4 wins against 4 super good teams, 2 of them road games. We were on a roll. We won our first 14, then lost 3 in a row, which I have no idea why or how. And then had won our last 9. And we were on the verge. We were really giving it to Minnesota, and unfortunately, I've replayed it in my head a million times. Driving in the paint, jump stopping, and my knee unfortunately blows out. But I just look at that team. We had the 3 of us: myself, Juwan, and Etuan. Chris Kramer's the defensive player of the year in the conference. Keaton Grant's the guy that scored 1,000 points, made a bunch of big shots in his career. Lewis Jackson, DJ Bird, Ryan Smith, Kelsey Barlow. That was it's still tough for me to think about, to be honest with you, because it's just disappointing. I think you grow up and you want to play in the Final Four and you want to get especially I think at Purdue, where they haven't been to one since 1980. It was something that we all really wanted to do, and it's just it's too bad that had to happen, because it would have been fun with the Final Four in Indianapolis that year, that's for sure. But I guess Butler got to experience that, and not us.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And sticking with that injury subject, I'm not sure if you knew that you were the first player, or at least I saw this somewhere. I think it's true. You're the first player to play in the NBA after suffering 2 ACL tears in college. So being in a rare club of guys who know how hard it is to come back from those multiple knee injuries, when you see social media kind of clowning someone like Derrick Rose and people questioning toughness or blaming injuries on people, does that kind of piss you off a little bit?
I think I see both sides of it. The fans want guys to be out there, and they want them to. I think they want to feel like the players are as passionate about their teams as they are. So I get where they're upset when Derrick says he wants to be able to hold his kids or whatever. That's probably not the best thing to say, because in my experience, I think in the last 5 years I've since 2010, I've torn my ACL twice. I've had a meniscus repair. I tore my labrum in my shoulder and had that fixed. That's how I was on TV with you guys last year, and I broke my hand. So I get it if you have severe head injuries as an NFL running back, where you're like, I want to be able to play with my kids. But when you're playing in an NBA game, and probably the worst injury that you're going to get is you tear an Achilles, or you tear your ACL or break your leg or something, they're going to fix that. So to say it the way he did, I think it just rubs the fans the wrong way. But at the same time, when he's going through that, and you see what Derrick was in high school and college, and even in the NBA when he's at his MVP type year, it stinks, because it's not like he wants to get hurt, and he's putting in crazy amounts of time and effort into rehabbing his knees. And, I felt the same way at Purdue. It's like, I tore my knee up. I had surgery down in Indianapolis with the team doctor, and it honestly didn't go very well from the start. There were some issues with it. But you rehab and you put the time in, you get to a point and I tore my ACL on the first official day of practice, and you're I remember sitting there we were actually practicing at the co-rec because it was a football Saturday, and I remember sitting there just thinking, well, what do I do now? 8 months ago I thought I was going to be in the NBA this year, or at least the next year, and right now I'm thinking, am I ever going to play again? So when that was happening to Derek, I certainly felt for him, but I at the same time see where the fans were kind of rubbed the wrong way by what he said.
Yeah, Derek's definitely a unique example. I mean, I know it definitely rubbed people the wrong way when he was sitting. He was clear to play and still sitting on the bench. And Joakim Noah and other guys like that were playing. So I don't think that situation would have applied to someone like you. That, like you said, you came back from 5 injuries in as many years. So, yeah, I definitely agree that fans kind of can get a little miffed when you talk about not being able to walk at your son's graduation, because that's just unrealistic.
Right. It's unrealistic, and when your salary is public and they see what you're making, I think it makes it mad.
Yeah, so like I said, you dealt with injuries, but despite the injuries you dealt with, you did end up getting drafted and ended up carving out a nice role in the NBA for a couple of seasons, like you mentioned, with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that was after playing a season overseas. First question about your experience with the Timberwolves. Whose weather is worse, Minnesota or Russia?
Well, the funny thing is, so Alexei Shved was my teammate in Minnesota, and he's my teammate now in Khimki. So he's kind of the hometown guy here.
Oh, there you go.
Khimki. And we used to talk about Russia a lot. So when I got the offer to come play here, I called Alexei and I asked him, just tell me about everything, see the coach, the weather, all that. He said, Rob, the weather in Moscow is better than the weather in Minneapolis. And he swore that to me. And it's like June, and there's days where it's like 40 degrees here. So I'm like, yo, this dude definitely lied to me. So from my experience, even though we had the polar vortex the one year of Minneapolis, and I'm sure you remember that in Chicago if you were there.
Yep.
In Minneapolis, it was equally as bad, if not worse. But I'm going to go with Minneapolis because by June, it was not still like snowing. So.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, the Twin Cities, in my experience, is really nice when it's warm out, but if you're playing in the NBA, you're not really there when it's warm out. So
you're missing out on the prime months to be up there, for sure.
Exactly. So playing in Minnesota, playing in the NBA, do you have any interesting stories about guys you played with or against during your 2 seasons in that league?
Yeah, for sure. I was a teammate of Kevin Garnett's for a couple months when he got traded back to the Timberwolves. I've got a good story about him. And then I would say I've got a good story about Kevin Durant, so I'll tell both of those. But
all right, let's hear it.
So we were playing a game in Los Angeles against the Lakers. This was my second year. We were the worst team in the league. We had a bunch of injuries, traded some guys at the deadline. But we were playing mostly young guys. It was like Andrew Wiggins and Levine's rookie year. We had multiple times where we had to sign an extra player with the injury exemption because we didn't have enough to play. We even signed Sean Kilpatrick, who's now actually had a great season actually in Brooklyn this last year. But we signed him, and I'm pretty sure that it was because he was like the closest guard available. So he drove up. We were playing at Madison Square Garden, and he literally drove up to the game and got there like 30 minutes before and played. So that's the kind of season it was because so many guys were injured. But we were playing in L.A. KG was hurt, so he wasn't playing. But in the first half, I took a charge on one of their guys. I want to say it was on Tariq Black, who's a really, really big dude. And he ran me over so hard, and I landed on my back super hard. So I kind of laid there, got up, played another 1 or 2 minutes, then told Saunders, hey, you gotta take me out. My back is killing me. So he takes me out. I go back in the locker room, and halftime's coming up. So the guys are going to be coming in soon. So they lay a towel down. I'm just laying on the floor. Guys come in for halftime, and KG comes in. He gives everybody a nickname. So some are common. Mine was Hum, like not crazy, but some are like out there.
Yeah.
But mine was simple. Mine was basic. So he comes in, how you doing? And I'm like, no, my back is not good. And the funny thing is, he kind of like gets down on, he might have been sitting in a chair near me or even got down on a knee and kind of started like massaging my back. So I'm like laying there, like writhing in pain, and Kevin Garnett, the legend, is like giving me a back massage.
You're not going to tell him to stop either.
No, I'm just like, he's like massaging out at the area where I landed on. It's just like, this is so surreal because like, before he came to the team, all we heard about was how like, yeah, if you have your cell phone out before the game, he'll throw it in the toilet and like stuff. And like, there's all these rumors going around about what he would be like to play with. To the point where I even called Etuan and I asked him, because he'd been with him in Boston, I was like, is this stuff true? And he was like, no, it's not. Like, as long as you work hard, he's a great teammate, which is true. He is a great, great teammate. Always there to give advice, plays super hard, practice. He practices really, really hard. Just a fun guy to get to play with and get to kind of experience. But yeah, he gave me a back massage in the Staples Center.
That's pretty cool. And let's, like you said, staying on the subject of Kevin's, what about Kevin Durant? What did he do in the league that caught your attention?
My first year, I just kind of made the team. This is like an early game. And we're playing the Thunder, and Durant kind of got off to a slow start. He hadn't been playing very well for the first quarter. So Corey Brewer is defending him from Florida. Really good player, 6'9", good defender, great energy guy, great teammate. He's guarding him. And Durant misses a shot in front of our bench. And Gorgie Dang, who's a rookie, same year as me, the rookies were me, Shabazz Muhammad, and Gorgie Dang. So ball goes out of bounds, and Gorgie claps his hands and yells, "Good D, Brew." So good defense, Brew. So Durant hears him. He looks at him, and he goes, and I won't say the cuss words, but there was many. But he goes, "It wasn't good D, Brew. It was bad shot, Kevin." So I'm like, that's like a great response. Like, I've never heard anybody say anything like that. But that's really, unique.
It's quick thinking.
Exactly. So Durant gets the ball. Somehow he got open, drills a three, and stares Gorgie down. So we were up 8 points. Now we're up 5. But he stares him down the whole way he's running back on defense. So I'm like, all right, tough shot, whatever. We go down, miss. They come back down. Durant gets the ball again and drills another three and stares Gorgie down again. So you're starting to think like, man, I'm really glad I didn't say anything because he's just staring, lasers through this guy after he makes them. We go back down. Our lead is now cut to 2, and we miss again. They come back down on our end, and the ball gets knocked out of bounds. And Durant comes over to our bench, and Durant is like 7 foot tall. First of all, like he's huge. So he comes over, and he's like, basically, who are you? I have no idea who you even are. When did you get drafted? Where did you even go to school? Like, he's saying it's the Gorgie. And Gorgie's looking at him like, he doesn't know what to say. And our assistant yelling at him like, stop inciting Kevin Durant. Like, shut up. So Gorgie's like stumbling over his words. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, thank God I didn't say good D brew, because I don't know if I could handle what Kevin Durant is doing to this man right now.
Just ripping at his soul.
No, he is. He really is. And everybody's just kind of looking at him like, dude, stop talking to Kevin Durant. So Durant gets the ball, and he hits like a step-back 3, looks at our bench, and yells, well, the paraphrase version, "I'm a bad man, and don't you ever forget it." And I remember looking at him like, I'd never want to get subbed in. Like, my thought. I never want to get put in the game. But unfortunately, like 4 weeks later, we're playing him again at home. And this is fresh in my mind still. Like, and I still haven't played like major minutes yet. I hadn't really had my breakthrough in my rookie year where I started playing consistently. So we're like shorthanded on this night. I think Kevin Martin is out. I want to say Chase Budinger is out. So I'm looking at the bench kind of before the game thinking, man, I could get some minutes tonight. So Corey Brewer is again guarding Durant, and he picks up his second foul. And in my mind, I start thinking to myself on the bench, if he gets his third, and I'm sizing up the rest of the guys on the bench, I'm like, it's probably going to be me that gets put in to have to guard this dude. So, of course, with like 3 minutes to go in the half, Brew gets his third foul. And I remember sitting there, and Rick Adelman was like, Robbie, you got him. And literally, all I could think of was like, oh, God. I have to guard Durant for 3 minutes. So I go in, and it was like there were sirens going off in the arena that a rookie poor defender was guarding Kevin Durant because he started bringing the ball up. And he went one-on-one with me every time. Like, it was terrifying. And he missed most of his shots. I fouled him on a three, so he made 3 free throws, but he missed, I want to say, 3 shots. But it wasn't because I played good defense. He was getting whatever he wanted. But
Just tell everyone it's because you played good defense, though. You shut down Kevin Durant.
Oh, my grandkids are going to definitely hear that, no doubt. But he's just a different animal. He's 7 foot tall. I mean, you watch him in the finals right now. He's a 7 foot guard, and he just gets his game on too.
Yeah, those are the types of stories you hear about guys like Durant, Kobe, Michael Jordan. That just shows how like they're a different breed. Like it's a different species. They're superhuman basketball players. It's insane.
But the thing was, he took a comment that wasn't even bad. Like that was not a slight to him in any way, and he took it and he used it to get himself going. You know, good D Brew. Like who uses that as like an insult? I don't know anybody does. So I was just, it was shocking to me. Like I said, I was like questioning whether I wanted to get put in the game at that point.
That's pretty fantastic. One more guy I wanted to hear about during your time in Minnesota, and you brought him up earlier briefly. It was your former coach, Flip Saunders. And when he passed away, I think it was a couple of years ago, there was a huge outpouring of condolences and support from pretty much everyone who knew him. What was it about him that made him so revered in NBA circles?
I mean, he was just a great people guy. He treated people extremely well. He had a great sense of humor. He was very generous. He's just a guy that you really wanted to play for. And I think I got to have him one year. He was the general manager of our team, and the next year he was the coach. And I just think he was very passionate about basketball, but he was also passionate about the people that he was involved with. So I felt fortunate that for a year I got to play on his team. And, when he died, it was a shock because he got diagnosed with the leukemia, and, he was very optimistic and said they caught it early, and everybody, thought it would be something they could certainly treat, and, it just didn't work out that way. And I think it just makes you understand that, you never can take life for granted because at any moment, it can certainly change course very quickly. And with him, it certainly did.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to shift gears back to your time at Purdue a little bit and try to tie in some current Purdue events. Their whole team is playing in the World University Games in August in Taipei, which is an event you participated back in your college days. Back then, it was a collection of players from different teams around the country. Now the whole Purdue squad's going over there. But you were actually coached by longtime Wisconsin coach Bo Ryan, and you had some other Big Ten players on that team. So there had to be some memorable experiences on that trip.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting. Our team was extremely talented. Like you said, Taylor Battle from Penn State, and then Evan Turner, and myself were the 3 Big Ten guys. We were really talented, though. We had probably 7 or 8 or even 9 guys that played in the NBA. Some of them still do. I think you look back on that and you feel fortunate you get to play in international competition. Unfortunately, we didn't win gold, but we got the bronze medal. But yeah, I think the one story that really sticks out to me would be we were playing an exhibition game, and things weren't going well for a lot of this tournament. We were extremely talented, but our chemistry was pretty poor. We'd kind of been thrown together in like 2 weeks. We had 3 weeks at the USA Training Center out in Colorado Springs, and then kind of like a week to get ready in Belgrade for these games, whereas some of these teams like Serbia had been playing together since they were like 15 on these, international competitions. So it was certainly different for us in that regard, but we had some issues. And Bo was our coach, and Coach Ryan, he doesn't want you to turn the ball over. He wants you to take good shots. He wants you to play in the offense. So Evan Turner is not that guy. You look at what Thad Matta would let him do, and Thad would tell him, I don't care how many times you turn the ball over, just make plays, for yourself, for teammates. And he was really good at it. But if you remember Evan, the year he was player of the year, he had games where he had like 9 and 10 turnovers. He probably had triple-double to turnovers, rebounds, and points. So it was just kind of, how he wanted him to play. And Evan was really good at doing it. He might turn the ball over, but he's also going to create a lot of opportunities for the team. So, but him and Bo didn't exactly mesh on their, I think, perspective of that. So we're playing an exhibition game, and this is the summer before our junior year. So he had a good sophomore year, but he hasn't broken out to be the Evan Turner that you remember from that unreal junior season he had. He actually, I want to say, was last on our team in minutes, which is shocking because he was taken in the next NBA draft with the second pick. But he had a bad first half, turned the ball over a couple times, and got taken out in like 3 or 4 minutes of play. And I remember getting in the locker room. I was like the last one in there. He's got his headphones on, like his Beats by Dre headphones. And I'm kind of looking at him, and I didn't really know what to say, and I don't think he could have heard me anyway, but he just listened to music. So Bo comes in, and he starts talking, and Evan's still listening to his music. And, like, in the middle of Bo's sentence, Evan Turner lets a massive fart rip. It like pierces the room. Like, it was really loud. And to Bo's credit, he didn't bat an eye. Like, he just kept going like nothing was going on. Just kind of ignored Evan and, whatever. But it was a surreal moment.
So Bo's just like giving out game plan, like talking through the game plan, giving out directions, and he's just ignoring the fact that Evan Turner is listening to his beats.
Yes.
I guess when you have to you face the dude in the Big Ten next year, I feel like at that point it's just like, you know what, this guy's, I just won't play him here, and then we'll move on.
Well, that's the thing. I would love to look up Evan's stats against Wisconsin in 2009, 2010. They had to be massive. Like, I guarantee you he had monster games against them. He had monster games against everybody, but I guarantee you he had great games against them that year.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And I guess it kind of makes sense when you put it from that perspective that, players don't mesh real well. Everyone's trying to get their own buckets. And now they've kind of moved to more of a team format where one college team is over there that probably plays better together.
Well, I think that's kind of why they did it. I think because the U.S. didn't, we had a great team. If you look on paper, we for sure were the most talented team there. But we just hadn't played together. I think we all, in the international game, it's different. It's a different deal. So I think they feel like you said, that if they can get a team that's played together and has some chemistry, they'd be better off.
Yeah, and kind of similar format of basketball when guys that don't have much experience playing together would be the NBA Summer League when you're trying to make an NBA roster. And you've obviously done that several times. How difficult is it to stand out in a league when everyone's trying to stand out and everyone doesn't really have defined roles on a team? And how hard is it to stand out when you're trying to make a roster?
Well, that's the thing, because that's why Summer League becomes really hard to have a good showing, because and you didn't mention this, but also Summer League as a rookie, it is a different deal if you're drafted versus undrafted, because I think when you're drafted, the team feels like they've invested assets in you and they're going to give you chances to succeed. They want you to succeed. Whereas if you're undrafted, you've really got to play well in the days leading up to the games and in the games in order to kind of get going like that. So I think that plays a factor. But then you're right. Everybody is playing for one of the coolest jobs in the world. So in that regard, it is a free-for-all. And I think for big guys, it's even tougher because guards are trying to score the ball. Even though a lot of times I think if a guard was to go out and make the right play every time, score when he should score, pass when he should pass, I'd be more impressed watching that than I would be watching a guy shoot 18 times and get 20 points. But that's not how a lot of these guys think. So big guys especially are a massive disadvantage because they have to have a guard throwing the ball in the post. So it can be tough for them. But it's a tough experience because also the pressure is huge. Every missed shot feels like it's such a big deal, especially if you're not getting a ton of shots. But yeah, it's stressful. But if you're going for a job that pays the way it does and is what it is, an NBA job, that's obviously that's how it's going to be.
Sure. And before we wrap up here, I did want to get a little deeper into a more recent era of Purdue basketball. Because you suffered a shoulder injury, you said it was a torn labrum, I think, in Italy. You were rehabbing back in the United States, and you went back to Purdue for a couple months to be a special assistant under Matt Painter. And you lived in his house during that time when you were an assistant coach, right?
Yeah, he let me stay in one of his guest rooms.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was cool. The cool thing about Coach Painter is that I want to say everybody that I played with has a really, really good relationship with him. So he's done a good job of just keeping in touch, and I think we appreciate. He's a very honest guy,